Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Downstream Outdoors. This week on Downstream Outdoors, before we get into the feature, we're going to talk about ways to support the show. Obviously the simplest way, the easiest way, the free way. Like, share, comment. Like, share, comment, no matter how you find us, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, no matter what. Like, share, comment. It helps spread the word about Downstream Outdoors and gives us a lot of motivation to keep on going. The other way is to look for some of our Downstream Outdoor products. This week's featured product is our Downstream Outdoor brand of Honey Pops. These Honey Pops are available at Little Rock's Natural Remedies along Route 36 in McKee, or at Saxton Outdoor Supply along Route 26 in Saxton, Pennsylvania. This week, we have Creg Strock back with his fly tying lessons. This week, he's tying a Sulfur Nymph. Not much I can say other than it's fascinating to watch, and I'm going to let Craig do the rest of the talking.
Hello, and thank you for joining us again in our video for Here from Aquatic Imitations. Today we're going to be tying a Sulfur Nymph. Sulfur is a very prolific hatch on just about every stream here in the central Pennsylvania area. Anything from Bob's Creek to Yellow Creek to Little J, the Frankstown branch, Penns Creek, Spring Creek, and the list goes on and on. Normally the sulfurs will start hatching anywhere from late April through May and even sometimes into early June, depending on water conditions and the temperature. Sulfurs come in three sizes: 14s, 16s, and 18s. The first hatch of sulfurs will be the size 14. They will normally last 3 weeks to 4 weeks. Then the size 16 will come on, once again lasting 3 to 4 weeks, and then the final end is the 18s. Today we're going to be tying a 14, which is the first hatch of the sulfurs, and the materials we're going to be using for this will be rusty brown ultra thread 70, a size 14 curved nymph hook. I prefer using 2303 Tiemco. It has a 1/8 inch gold bead on it for the head. We'll be using thin skin for the back of it and the wing case in rusty brown. The tailing material is mallard duck feather that's dyed wood duck. It's wood duck brown. Our sulfur yellow-orange dubbing, where I'm using 6X tippet material, fluorocarbon, to use as a rib because it will disappear into the dubbing. I really don't want it to show. And for the legs, very nice product that I really like. It's called Lively Legs. Does a really nice job in showing the legs on the fly. They move in the water, very productive. Pretty much all the nymphs that I tie for my own box, I use the Lively Legs on because I found they're very, very effective. So we have our materials here and our dubbing wax to make sure our dubbing sticks to the thread. So we're going to get started and put this Sulfur Nymph together. Okay, let's get started with this Sulfur Nymph. Once again, we're going to take our thread, start right behind the bead. And we are going to make a thread body the whole way to cover the shank of the hook, the whole way back past the barb of the hook to just where the hook starts to bend. Now that we're back there, we'll lift up, we'll take and cut off our tag end of thread. Now here is our mallard flank feather that's dyed wood duck brown. We're going to take about 4 to 5 individual hackle barbules off that, pull it off the stem. You want your tail length to be 1.5 times the length of the gap between the shank of the hook and the barb. So that being said,
We're going to put it on top, take 2 turns of thread to anchor it right on top of the hook. Take a look at it. If it's a little long, take your other pieces and just pull that forward gently to shorten it up. If you like it just the way it is, take 2 more turns of thread right at the base to anchor it in. Then lift up the excess and trim it off. Now we're going to tie in our piece of fluorocarbon 6X tippet that we're going to use as our rib. And tie that once again. Try to keep all your materials right on top of the hook shank. So I use my thumbnail to keep it in place. I'll take 3 turns of thread. And once again, clip off the tag end, any excess you have of it. Now we're going to tie in our thin piece of thin skin. This will be the top part of the Sulfur Nymph. They are yellowish orange underneath. They are a brownish rusty color on top. So I trimmed it to a point. I'm tying it in once again, keeping the thread right to the base of the tail, and I'm pulling that out of my way. Now I'm taking the thread and we are going to wax it because we're going to start applying our dubbing. And to do that, I like my thread waxed. The dubbing adheres to it better and gives you a better dub body. Once again, I'm taking, after I have my wax, I'm taking my thumb and my finger and running it down the thread to remove any excess pieces of wax that stuck to the thread. Here is our sulfur orange yellow dubbing. It is rabbit hair, a blended of rabbit and some ice crystal ice dubbing to give it a little sparkle. Once again, you want to put on and string up a noodle, dubbing noodle up your thread. Try to make it look as evenly in uniform as possible in thickness. So as we go up, I stretch it, roll it between my index finger and my thumb, and get it very, very tight and very, very uniform. That makes a good dub body. Now we are done. We're going to start wrapping the body right from the base of the tail forward. Now these sulfurs have a fairly thin body, so don't get overly dubbed on there. They're not like a caddis that's chunky. But we're going to dub the body up about 3/4 of the way up the hook. Alright, now that we have our body dubbed, we're going to pull up our piece of thin skin right across the top of the body. And you want to keep this right dead on top. This is a good time, particularly if you have a rotating vise, that you can look at it, turn the vise and say, okay, that thin skin is right on top of the nymph. So I've done that. I've taken two turns of thread to lock that down on top. I'm going to pull it back and take 3 more turns in front of it and just leave it hang. Now here is where we take our piece of fluorocarbon and we're going to use that as a rib. So we're going to come in underneath, come up over top, keep it tight. You want about 5 or 6 turns of this across the top and around your nymph. This locks that thin skin in place. Try to make the wraps as uniform as possible. When you get up to your thread, pull it up, and we're going to do a figure 8 with your thread. You're going to take 1, 2, 3 turns of thread to lock your rib in place. Now you can take your scissor points and cut off the excess amount of the fluorocarbon for your rib and get that out of your way. Now you're going to pull your thin skin back, move your thread to in front of your thin skin, and you're going to dub up to behind your bead, just to give it a little bit of a body. And that's the start of your thorax. So once again, I've still got wax on my thread from when I waxed it before. Putting my dubbing on, nice thin noodle, and dubbing up to behind the bead. Now I've got a little more dubbing on than what I care to, but I'll use it to fatten the thorax a little bit. So now my thread is right behind the bead. My thin skin's still hanging out the back. Now I'm going to tie in my lively legs. Now as you can see, there's 3 sets of legs on this. The front set comes out and faces forward. So you're going to take that and you're going to tie that little tab in the front as close to the back of the bead as possible. So I've taken 2 turns of thread, and here's where your tweezers come really handy. You're going to take that, grab a hold of that little tab in the front, pull it up, straighten it out to make sure the legs are once again right on top of your nymph. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to take 2 turns of thread in front of the first set of legs, go behind the first set of legs, tie the thread in to right in behind the second set of legs, go behind the second set of legs, and you're going to take 2 turns of thread there. Now you're going to lift up this third set of legs, stretch them, clip them off. You don't use them, go up to your front tab, pick it up, stretch it, clip it off. So now you have your lively legs tied in. Now we go back, we're going to wax our thread again, because we're going to put some more dubbing in to make our thorax. Now for the thorax, I've already got a good underbody done there, so I'm going to make this one thin, because I'm going to weave this dubbing with the thread up around and between the legs to actually bury the legs into the thorax. So I go take 2 turns of dubbed thread behind the last set of legs. The next turn of thread is a figure 8, goes over top and between the last set of legs. Now I'm going to pull the legs back and go right in between them. Creating the thorax. I've got to add a little more dubbing to get up around the front set of legs and then right in behind the bead. So once again, I put it on a very thin coat of uniform dubbing. Now I'll take 1 turn across and put a figure 8 in between the front set of legs, pull the legs back, and move your thread up to right behind your bead. Now I'm looking up, turning my vise, I'm looking at it. The thorax looks good, the abdomen looks good, so I'm ready to put my wing case on. Now here's where I take my thin skin yet, pull it up over, keep it centered, move your thread up, nice loose loop over top, center your thin skin to right on top, pull it tight, take 1, 2, 3 turns of thread to lock your thin skin down. Pull your thin skin up and take 3 turns of thread behind the back of the bead and in front of the thin skin. Now that I'm happy with that, I'll take my scissor points, I'll go in right against the top of the bead and cut the rest of my thin skin off. Now I'll pull the front legs back with my fingers, take 1, 2, 3 turns of thread, and get my whip finish tool out. Once again, take your hook, catch your thread, go behind your loop in your whip finish tool, come up and create your figure 4 or your sailboat sail, pull it down on top, rotate the handle and make a hangman's loose, basically 4 or 5 turns of thread, let your loop slip and then pull your thread down, and you have your whip finish and tighten your thread. Clip your excess thread off. And here is where my Sally Hansen Hard as Nails nail polish, clear nail polish comes in. I always put a coat on top of the wing case and the thread. It gives it a really nice shiny finish, and it locks the thread down when it dries. It does a really nice job. And there is an absolutely gorgeous Sulfur Nymph. And there is an absolutely gorgeous Sulfur Nymph. As you can see, the top of it is brown, underneath is golden orangish yellow, the way it should be, and that's exactly the way a Sulfur Nymph looks in the stream if you picked up a rock and looked at it, other than the brass bead, but the gold bead is just for flash, and it gives it some weight to get it down the bottom where it needs to be. Thank you for joining us again. We appreciate your time. We will be doing another video on a sulfur dry pattern, and once again, we appreciate your time.
Well, that was it. You know, I'm really enjoying this series with Creg. I know I really have the itch to get out there and do some fishing right now with these beautiful days that we got coming right now here in February, and with all the talk of fishing with Creg, I really have the itch to get out there and fish, and I cannot wait to wet a line. And as we all know, trout season is bearing down on us, and this whole series is to help us get ready and really geared up and excited for trout season. But that's a little bit more than a month and a half away, so there's nothing much we can do about it right now, besides enjoy these videos. But since our video for this week's over, you're going to have to come back next week. And until then, keep your line wet and out of the trees.